So I was doing Uber this weekend, and for the most part, I did listen a little bit to streaming radio, but for a good amount of it, over the last week, I listened to a lot more Spotify. I just found a few more playlists that I was much more interested in listening to on a regular basis, and I decided to go ahead and put them on more than I did Radio Garden or TuneIn or iHeartRadio or any other places like that. And, Spotify does a good job of curating playlists in a lot of different senses. So I used that when I was doing Uber over the weekend. And all the hits I could find are on the stations anywhere else. If I'm listening to at this moment in Germany, in Australia, between Austria or France or the Netherlands, pick it. They're all with certain music that they have out there that's doing really well. And that's what they're playing for the most part. So finding hits, it's not hard for them. They have it all the time. Very simple for them. For me, I don't know what it is, but the stations here around the country, why is it American gets screwed up? American radio screws it up all the time. We have the resources to go ahead and know what's streaming right now. We have Billboard, a great resource that lets know what songs are popular right now. So when I read a story from Jacobs Media, and Fred Jacobs, a big programming consultant extraordinaire, he says, what happens when you run out of hits? This baffles my mind. It's not that hard. So he brings up the story about Netflix. Even though they're putting out all this money for new content, they're running out of hit shows. So Netflix actually talked about the fact that they had a drop-off in the subscriber base because lighter content late in the first half of the year due to COVID-19 production delays. So a lack of hit TV shows, TV series, blockbuster movies, compelling documentaries, and others. Music Business Worldwide's Mary Stassen made a point in the story last week, and streaming audio services have had a better run during this period. According to the RIAA, Subscriptions to Recording Industry Association of America, subscriptions to services like Spotify and Amazon have increased by more than 15 million in 2020. And revenue followed up more than 9% to $12 billion last year. So they're doing fine. And the lion's share of the music market is catalog product. Hits Daily Double, it's a publication, hitsdailydouble.com, says gold now accounts for 2/3 of the market, which means that is recurring music. Now, I mentioned this a little bit over in my Broadcasters podcast, but I wanted to go and focus on it much more here. So the idea is that they're trying to say the same excuse for not being that much new music out there. It doesn't hold water like it does television, because a lot of these artists, they were not out on tour. They could go ahead and write, record, and still do studio work and record content. There was a lot of new music that's gone out. There's a lot of music that consistently comes out on a regular basis. The Billboard Hot 100 tells you that. We have album bombs. We have new albums all the time. Ariana Grande did one during the pandemic. Taylor Swift recorded a full album of Fearless. She re-recorded it for herself during the pandemic. She's done 3 in the last year, all going to number 1. So there's not a shortage of music. I'm sorry, it's just not that way. Justin Bieber just came out with new music. Bruno Mars has new music out there. They're all coming out. Doja Cat's going to have a new album coming out soon. Dua Lipa came out with a great album. So just the hits that are out there. And there's all this new music that can be discovered that the radio stations choose not to do. So that's what they're talking about. A lack of new hits. So the problem, he says, is whether you're running a subscription streaming video platform or a contemporary music station. Is it a problem for the music industry and by extension radio? Ultimately, yes. Every form of mass pop culture and art needs to feed a beast in order to become and remain mass appeal. No, it's different here, Fred. It's because of the fact that you have Netflix doesn't necessarily rely on American content. They're relying a lot on international content, as a matter of fact. And for that matter, there is a lot of international content that comes in. Just look at what BBC provides. Look at what they're getting from other countries, say the Netherlands or Sweden or France or Spain, or pick it. There's a lot of production out there. A lot of different shows are just being subtitled or dubbed, for that matter. So you can't just say it's that. And there's a lot of shows that become hits off of there. Broadchurch is one. I'm trying to think of the show. What was the one, the Spanish show? Money Heist, right? There are shows that are out there, 000 on Amazon Prime. They've become some hit shows, but they're dubbed or they were put out in subtitles, and people have caught on to those shows. There might not be all like shows like The Queen's Gambit, but just either which way, you can't just take that away. So this correlation doesn't work for me. There's data that suggests a new music drought, at least in terms of emerging successful mass market artists and songs breaking through. But this has happened a lot in the past. I can still remember specifically the late 80s into the early 90s, where you didn't have the blockbuster artists putting out a lot of records, say like a Michael Jackson or a Prince or a Whitney Houston or a Madonna. You had, or Janet Jackson. Some artists didn't always come out. There would be a couple of years of not having a new album. Some changes going on, some reworking of content, whatever it was, to go into the next decade, things like that. And so this thought process doesn't work for me because there was a lot of new music that came out from a different genre or different style of music. Dance music would be much more popular. Rap music would be much more popular. But because of the homogenization of radio, it's not top 40 where you have a cycle of music coming out every decade, where the decade kind of moves around in a particular cycle. It's not happening now. This is the start of a new decade where we're supposed to have in the top 40 contemporary hit radio format or the genre, you would have dance music that's very prominent out there. And there's a lot of great records out there that are coming out that are just not being played. And it's just at the fault of the radio stations not being allowed to play it. That's what it comes down to. So, would an injection of serious money, the audio equivalent of what Netflix is laying out, likely the question for record labels? Maybe distribution and marketing have a little something to do with it. Well, remember, if you might have heard me talk about here on a broadcaster's podcast, I talked about the fact that, and I didn't talk about it here, but I'll make the point, is that the record labels no longer have promotional divisions for radio. They're eliminating those as a cost-cutting measure because they feel like there's probably no need for it, or they could be consolidated with somebody else. But streaming is where the promotion's at. So radio doesn't have that promotional arm. Doesn't mean they can't be doing their own groundwork and saying, you know what, here's a new song that's coming out. Here's what this chart says. Maybe we should put some testing into it, do some audience metric testing, research this, see some of these songs that are out there. Listen, one of the stations listen to now that has an accompanying chart on Spotify as a playlist is called Slam. And Slam is a radio station in the Netherlands, a very popular top 40 formatted station. Now, they play gold, they play recurrence, and they just play all new hits, but it's a very interesting format. But then their top 40 list is played in a stream 24 hours, commercial free, over on, you can listen to right now, Slam 40. And you hear the name of the song, you can hear the song number where they are on the countdown, and they count the songs in different orders. And all these songs that I hear now, even in the UK, there's just certain songs that don't get played. But the reason there is because of the UK. There's so much new music coming out by artists there, and so much variety of music. Because in the UK, much like the US, you have so many different artists that are doing pop music in the UK. And then rap artists, oh my God, it's just crazy. And then there's music from overseas that is always getting some traction as well. This all happens. And then there's no thought process about, oh, well, we need to go and do something about this. For whatever reason, American radio doesn't want to go ahead and be a global product. They do not want to go ahead and look globally and look what other music's out there. Like, they barely even want to touch reggaeton, which is one of the most popular music formats right now anyway. I mean, for them to not be to be afraid of playing a Bad Bunny or a J Balvin or an Ozuna or things like that and not giving it a chance. That happened before. Might have been novelty records in some cases for some of the stars, but we remember the Latin fusion of the 90s that we had Ricky Martin or Jennifer Lopez or Pitbull or, well, not Pitbull, not to that point, or Ricky Martin or Mark Anthony for that matter. Like, some of these artists might just say, hey, you know what, we should do something in the English market. But there are songs in the English market. So CJ Whoopty has a great Latin remix that I just heard the other day. Bad Bunny and J Balvin being put into Cardi B's I Like It. Or the song One Day, Una Dia from Dua Lipa. That song came out there and was fantastic. And now you have a song, and I think it's J Balvin now is collaborating with Khalid on a new record. So why aren't those songs getting more play? Things like that. It's just, you know, oh, God forbid we play something that sounds different than something that's not Taylor Swift, not Ariana Grande, and not Justin Bieber. Like, come on. Let's open up our ears a little bit. Have a little variety out there. You guys are afraid of playing BTS, for that matter. And there's so many good hit songs that are being played across the pond, over in the UK, in Europe, all over. I mean, I could name songs that are just really, would be standout songs in the U.S. Offenbach, Wasted Love, Leone, Tainted Love. I mean, even there's songs from the artists across that are getting new songs. Okay, there's a new song from Regard, Troye Sivan, and Tate McRae called You. Fantastic song. Should definitely be played. And there are new songs that are getting added to the chart now for the Billboard Hot 100 that don't ever get played. Like right now, why hasn't Doja Cat and SZA, that song should be peaking right now on urban radio and should be already breaking right now on CHR. Why it's not getting added yet in some cases, I don't know. But these are the things that should be considered where we are. So here's what Fred goes along and analyzes. Everything today sounds derivative of what came before it. That rampant sampling of gold songs and hip-hop records speaks to a lack of ingenuity and talent. Sorry, I'm not buying that. An hour on YouTube and TikTok just suggests that's not it. There are plenty of multi-talented musicians out there, unable to connect with a delivery method that effectively reaches mass markets. So maybe it's not a content or creative problem, but it's a distribution and a marketing problem. Before there was a long tail of audio streaming, radio and the music industries worked together to build brands and promote hits. Because everyone listened to the same radio stations across the country, and because most of them were playing similar playlists, we were all exposed to new music and new artists at the same time. Progressive rock in the 60s and 70s took big risks, and the fact breaking out in radio has always been a long, laborious process. But once these influencers committed to a new song or a new artist, it wasn't long before the entire country was singing along. Ask any music fan about new artists they discovered this year. You're likely to build a list with a few duplicates. That's because we're all streaming different stuff. One of the biggest examples, I'm going to say her name again, Olivia Rodrigo. She now has a second song out there. I don't know if it's even being played yet. Driver's License is still the song they're being pushed. And Deja Vu is a new record. It might not be Driver's License good, but it's a pretty decent record, and it did break top 10 on Billboard, so something's going to be said there. And just there's other artists that can be considered, but Mass Wolf, Astronaut in the Ocean, breakout hit, a smash all over the world. That's a 2019 song, and all of a sudden now it's starting to be played over on hit radio. But when you look at it, the market is there. There should be not any excuse for not having new songs to put on the radio. When I look at the list right now, the media-based top 40, which is the basis for all the contemporary hit radio stations around the country, what they need to play, there's a brand new song from Billie Eilish or Power. Well, if it's not a Billie Eilish, if it's not a Post Malone, they're all going to go ahead and put songs, and they're just going to push them up front because they're invested in those artists, because there's obviously some kind of a promotional deal they had with them or with their label. Ariana Grande, obviously, she has her deal with Republic, and everything gets pushed out. Whatever songs they want to push out for her, they get pushed out. All there is to it. But I look at their list of songs right now. Peaches, Justin Bieber. When Justin Bieber puts out a new record, it goes right up. No doubt about it. But then I look at the rest of the list here, and it's just so far behind. Maroon 5, Megan Thee Stallion, Beautiful Mistakes, you could be pushing that up a little bit higher right now, and it's just starting to make its way into the top 15. And there's just so many songs they miss so often here. Glass Animals, Heat Waves, they're missing on that. It's not getting played that much yet. Tiesto's The Business, still not being played on radio yet. Like, this song is a massive hit worldwide, and that song's not getting pushed up. It has not been. Don't know why. And there are others, like Polo G Rap Star. That also got very popular. But, of course, God forbid CHR is going to play a song like that. They're just so behind on songs. And that's what happens with all these artists. It's what they do. It's just stupid. So, according to Fred Jacobs, he says that people still listen to radio. And that's why radio's biggest companies are using their national scale to promote their podcasts for their branded apps. The megaphone still works. No, it doesn't. The podcasts are being listened to through other outlets, but it's not from the radio promotion. I'm sorry, it's just not. If you think it is, I appreciate you being, the good guy and standing up for radio, but you're wrong at this point. People are finding their ways because they're just searching through and discovering new programming that they want to listen to. But it's not so much because you heard it off a radio stream or off a FM AM signal. I'm sorry, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work where radio is promoting to podcasting. No, podcasting does its own promotion. So we'll leave it there. Of course, I can always talk more about this, but I appreciate Fred Jacobs at least starting the conversation and me making the reason to go and continue it. But we'll keep the conversation going on the next episode. I'll talk to you next time.